Now, I grew up in Toronto, and when I was young, the exhibition marked the end of the summer and the beginning of the school year. We always knew that once we been to the X, it was time to get ready for school. It was time to get ourselves organized for that first day of class. And before the first day of class, we needed to go shopping, which was always fun, for new clothes, for shoes, for school supplies. And I don't think things have really changed that much, except instead of pens and paper, parents are now purchasing new computers, calculators, and phones for their young students, all bought by parents to encourage learning and help them be successful in their studies. Now, from about the age of 4 and 5, we start teaching our children head knowledge: reading, writing, spelling, English composition, language, math, history, science, geography, all subjects that we hope will help our children to eventually gain employment and function as productive members of our society. And it is a long process, a minimum of 13 years in public school and high school, and with college or university or both added on at the end, attendance in formal education adds up to between 18 and 20 years. It's getting longer and longer as students choose to stay in school to get a bit more education, a bit more tools to help them in the job market. The amount of time that we as a society choose to dedicate to our children's education and the cost of providing this education all speaks to the value we place on our children's growth and development. We are fortunate to have the resources, both time and money, to spend this way. In many regions of the world, this is not the case. Children start to work at a young age. They are valued for the amount they can contribute to the family household. Now, even though we are aware of this, it is still difficult for us to conceive how weak and vulnerable and lowly children were considered in Jesus' day. Children were always at risk. It has been estimated that 30% of all children died at childbirth. Of those who survived, another 30% died by the age of 6, and another 30% died by the age of 16. First century parents cared for and loved their children. But when the odds were against a child living to adulthood, there was a reluctance to place much value on childhood. A child was nobody, the social equivalent of a slave, and treated more as property than a person. So, by definition, children were humble. They had no authority, no rights, and they were not a person. When the disciples asked Jesus, "Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" and Jesus brought a child into their midst and told them, "Unless you change and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven," it must have been a shock. Not the answer the disciples were expecting from their revered rabbi that was given much authority, much recognition, much praise. And Jesus continued, "Whoever becomes humble like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me." Now, especially since the Enlightenment, Western Christian culture has recognized how valuable children are. Schools to teach all children, not just the privileged few, were established by churches at this time, and then the responsibility was taken over by the state. Head knowledge, that is, reading, writing, and arithmetic, made up the curriculum. It was designed to teach children what they needed to know to become productive adults. Now, in the 19th century, Sunday schools were set up that paralleled the state school system as a way of teaching children the stories and moral values of our Christian faith. The head knowledge that was taught were Bible stories, and from these Bible stories, moral behavior was extrapolated. Now, we still teach Bible stories and moral lessons in Sunday school, and that's not a bad thing at all. We want our children to be grounded in the stories and the moral teachings contained in Scripture. But in recent years, Christian educators have recognized that in all this head knowledge, something's missing. Head knowledge alone does not develop spiritual maturity and grow disciples of Jesus Christ. It does not awaken a child to the presence of God in their lives. David Chinos and Ivy Beckworth are Christian educators in the United Church, and they wrote about new ways of teaching our children in their book, Children's Ministry in the Way of Jesus. In this book, they define spiritual awareness in children as a glimpse of transcendence that comes to awareness in the active imagination of a child. This grows into full awareness of the presence of God as they grow in relationship to God through prayer and through worship. This spiritual awareness is cultivated through relationships with others, especially adults who model spiritual maturity. The phrase, faith is caught, not taught, distills this understanding down into its most basic form. Relationships teach far more about our relationship with God and about growing as disciples of Jesus Christ than head knowledge alone. Now, when I first came to St. Andrew's, we were struggling in the Sunday school. A meeting to discuss Christian education was arranged that was open to anyone in the congregation who wanted to come. And when those who were attended were asked the question, "What do you remember most about Sunday school?" the unanimous answer was our Sunday school teachers. The men and women who made it their mission, many of them for years on end, to teach their faith to children. It was not what was taught, the head knowledge, that had the lasting impact. It was who did the teaching. That close relationship between teacher and pupil did more to encourage us to grow in Christian understanding and faithfulness than the stories we were taught or the catechism that we memorized. Lived out faith teaches us faith in a way that nothing else can. As we are mentored by older Christians, their lives and their attitudes model the way of Christ so that we can imitate it. And our children learn to trust and love God through experiencing relationships of trust and love in family and in communities of faith. Today, with all of our electronic communications, from Facebook to Twitter to email and to Skype, and there's others that I'm not even aware of, I'm sure, children still long to be loved and valued and accepted as part of a community. All of us do. It is a longing for relationship held within community. Shared friendships and shared experience of transcendence bind us together in a powerful way. For as we share our experience of God working through our lives and loving us into spiritual awareness, we see God's loving life in one another. That is the gift that we want to give our children. When we mentor our children, we build relationships of trust and respect, and through these relationships, children come to see themselves as God sees them, as valuable, as purpose-filled, as beloved. In our Sunday school today, we have very dedicated teachers who have been mentoring our children for, in some cases, 3 to 5 years, but in some cases, 25 to 30 years. But it is not just our Sunday school teachers who need to deliberately and carefully build relationships with our children. It is all of us. The more threads of relationship that connect us to our faith community, the stronger the bond we have within that community. And that strong bond is what we want to give to our children. Now, for us, A good start is to get to know the names of the children and the family that they belong to. Maybe saying hi, introducing yourself by name as you pass them in the hall, really listening when you ask how their past week was in school. Getting to know one child well enough to know what interests them. Be it sports, reading, spending time on the computer, photography, playing an instrument. Sharing yourself honestly and openly without giving advice or lecturing. And talking about your faith when it is appropriate. When a child or a young person knows you are truly interested in them, they will feel comfortable talking to you in coffee hour or when they see you in the hall. If you're not sure where to start, speak with Lauren, our Christian education coordinator, or Mike, our youth leader. They know our children and our youth very well, and they can direct you to children and youth who would really appreciate a mentor. Mentoring is not a program. It is relationship building. It is community building. And it is in relationship and in community that we grow in Christ. Thanks be to God for the church, his body, that is our community.